We're back with our second pack of the day. I believe I looked it up. I think this is 24 booster packs, so about 24 different videos. I would expect one booster pack per video. Last video, I gave a little introduction and sort of blitz through the cards. I'll take a little bit more time with the cards today, so that if you're not familiar with them, or if you were familiar with them but you've forgotten, you'll have a little bit more memory. So we're going to take this guy. All right, we'll start with War Squeak, an enchantment, 1 red. Target creature can't block, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 on haste. Very strong for the mice. Dire Sight, sorcery for 3. Surveil 2, then draw 2 cards, then lose 2 life. It's kind of paying 2 and black instead of black for a similar effect to draw 2, lose 2. Except you get to surveil 2 first, which is much stronger. Probably worth the extra turn you gotta wait to play this. All right, 3-tree Root Weaver for 2 cost 1/3. You get your little mana dork guy here. He's a mole druid, so he does not actually fit into any of the specific animal tribes. So he's just kind of generic mana fixing in green. Night Whirl Hermit for 3. You get a 1/4 with Vigilance, and as long as you have Threshold, he is a 2/4 with Vigilance that also can't be blocked. Carrot Cake, one of the all-stars of Bloomburrow Limited. For 2, you play out an artifact that gives you a 1/1 white rabbit creature token, and you get to scry 1. Then, when this is sacrificed, you also get another 1/1 and another scry 1. It's got an ability to sacrifice itself for 2, and that gives you 3 life, which is the standard food token ability because this is a food. However, this is also good if you are, what's it called, the scavenge mechanic with the squirrels that looks specifically for food. So while this card is definitely for rabbits and is not in the colors that you're playing with squirrels, there are abilities in the set that are not necessarily rabbit specific that can still take advantage of this that will cause it to sacrifice. And even though it's not sacrificing itself using its own ability, when it is sacrificed, it will still trigger the second activation of the bunny scry cycle. All right. Alania's Pathmaker for 4. You get a 4/2, and whenever it enters, you exile the top card of your library, and you get to play that card until your next turn. So you sort of draw an extra card when you play this. Seedpot Squire for 4, you get a 3/3 with flying. Whenever it attacks, target creature you control without flying gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. And I gotta say, at this point, I think the birds are the only miss in Bloomburrow. Birds are in blue-white. Every other group has pretty strong synergies. They're all using the same keywords, the same mechanics, etc. The birds are using a totally weird mechanic that is really hard to build around in Limited, because birds want to be flying creatures that boost creatures that don't fly. And birds fly. So if you are drafting blue, if you're drafting any other color, you're drafting, let's say you're drafting green-black. You're like, I'm playing green-black. I know I'm drafting squirrels. If I see a squirrel, it's probably fine in my deck. That doesn't mean I'm not going to want other things. Like we saw the Mana Dork Mole earlier, obviously doesn't fit into any of the 4 creature types for any one color. And of course, if you're drafting squirrels, you might want a couple of raccoons to give you some extra juice or whatever. Obviously, just because a color wants you to draft squirrels doesn't mean that you can't find other cards that work in that deck. However, for the birds, just because you're playing birds doesn't mean when you see a bird you should draft it, because if you get too many birds, then their abilities that target things that don't fly won't have anything to hit. So it's the only color in this 10 2-color combination set that doesn't work simply. It's not beginner friendly. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing. And honestly, the payoff isn't amazing. It's one of the only mechanics in the set that feels like it routinely misses, and that it's easy to break and sometimes can be hard to build for. I mean, if you don't draw correctly, you're just not going to get there. And obviously, if you don't draw correctly, you could say that for any game of Magic. Any game of Magic, you can draw poorly. But for a mechanic like the birds, where you have to have at least one thing that has the flying and at least one thing that doesn't have the flying, it just doesn't feel synergistic. It feels like you're twisting yourself into knots, while all the other mechanics across the other 9 color pairs feel pretty good. All right, we got Hidden Grotto. So this is a pretty good, simple mana fixing card. It's not incredible, but it's nice to have if you need to fix your mana a little bit. You get to Surveil 1 when it comes into play. It gives you a colorless mana, or you can filter 1 other mana into it to give you a mana of any color. All right, this is common. Stormcatch Mentor. This is our uncommon, red and blue. You get a 1/1 with haste and prowess. And it also lets instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. I've heard from people that drafted Bloomburrow more than me that this is one of the more disappointing signpost uncommons. Seems like the other color pairs have stronger abilities on their sort of build around me uncommons. I would agree the 1/1 with haste and prowess for 2 is a little weak. You maybe want this to be a 2/2 to feel a little bit better. But I love this cost reduction plus prowess. I think that's a strong combo, and I think maybe, I think I'm going to try it in my cube and see if it works. All right, Galewind Moose. This is one of the big generically good cards. Obviously, it's not one of the 4 creature types you find in green. For 6, you get a 6/6 with Vigilance, Trample, and Reach, and it also has Flash. So this is often the top-end combat trick you're seeing in a lot of green games, where you're attacking advantageously, and all of a sudden this moose comes out and turns the attack against you. And it has Vigilance, so if you don't have an answer for it, if you can't get around it, once it hits the board, you're kind of just stuck in the Galewind and Moose world until you're able to block it at cost or find some removal for it. So, obviously there's lots of better cards than this, but in a limited environment, this is just huge value. All right, we got Mabel's Medal. For 2 at instant speed, target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn, and up to 1 other target creature gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. This is great. The mice want you to target them, so this lets you target 2 of them. Very, very good value. All right, here we go. A nice little art treatment for Tender Wild Guide. It looks like a rare card. For 2, you get a 2/2. It has Offspring for 2, so you can pay 4 to get a 2/2 and a 1/1. And if you do that, each one of them will be able to tap for any mana of any color, or tap to put a +1/+1 counter on themselves. I love this. I'm a sucker for putting +1/+1 counters on anything. If that line of text shows up somewhere, I'm like, I love this card. It's great. So I'm excited to see this guy, especially in a nice little art treatment. We have our Mountain. Love these full arts. Our foil is Sticky Tongue Sentinel. For 3, you get a 3/3 with Reach. And when it enters, you get to bounce 1 other permanent you control to its owner's hand. So you're not going to be able to ruin your opponent's day, but the frogs want to play and replay themselves. They're jumping up and down, as it were. So this is pretty good in the frogs deck. And even outside of the frogs deck, I have found and seen a lot of value at this with just having a 3/3 for 3 is pretty good, and the bounce something to your hand is pretty much never a downside here. So love this guy. And all right, we got a little Offspring token, Splash Lasher. I love having specific tokens for when you make things, and in this set, with the Offspring mechanic, there are tons of specific tokens, so I'm excited to see one of these here. And that's pack number 2. We've got quite a ways to go before we are finished with this box, so I hope you're enjoying this. If you are, let me know what you liked, and we'll see you in the next one.